1. This just happened recently. My refrigerator compressor, the part that pumps cooling fluid to make the fridge cold, broke down, and it would cost $2,500 just to get a new one. So my parents said, yep, we're getting a new fridge. The first place they went to was Best Buy, and we were able to find a new fridge at a decent price. They said it would be ready to deliver by Wednesday this week. Perfect. Or so we thought. The next day we get a call that the fridge we were supposed to get hasn't even arrived at the store yet, and won't be here for a few weeks, so naturally, we were very mad. My dad immediately went to find another fridge for sale at a different store. This time he went to Lowe's and found another one with a better price than the one before, and Lowe's offers free delivery, and will be here by Friday this week. My dad bought the fridge, but my mom wanted to double-check Best Buy again, despite what happened, to see if she could get a lower price, so they went back and sure enough, nothing. Now, here's the part where we got some PettyRevenge on Best Buy for lying. As they were leaving, a different couple was already arguing with the manager for, ironically enough, the delivery time of a new fridge. The manager said they won't get their new fridge until after Christmas this year. Yes, I am serious. My dad happily chimed in on the conversation and told the couple that Lowe's can deliver a new fridge for a lower price in 2 days. It should go without saying that the couple and a few other customers followed my parents out of the store. Now, before anyone says, yes, Best Buy did lie to my dad, because they said the new fridge will be at my front door by Wednesday, and he already pre-ordered for it. But when they called to say the fridge that we bought was not even at the store yet, my parents wanted a refund. They also told us to expect more delays, which we were not happy as we were promised quick service. They failed to deliver. And yes, $2,500 really was the cost of a new part with labor. We call it around, including tax. 2. About 6 years ago, I worked for a few months as a taxi driver. The most profitable time of the week were Friday and Saturday nights. We would troll the bats in strip clubs and pick up people who had had a few drinks and didn't want to risk a DUI. Most customers were good people, not falling down drunk and tipped well. During VAR rush, I usually only agree to go to certain parts of town so I could get as many people as possible. This couple lied to me about where they lived by saying it was by a certain business, just a little further, just a little further. Finally, they admitted they lived in a rural area miles of town. They lied because several taxis wouldn't take them. I was halfway there at that point. If I turned around, I wouldn't get paid, so I finished the drive while the man ranted about how greedy we all were. He tipped me $1, so instead of earning $60 that hour, I lost money. Halfway back, I heard a phone ring in my taxi and decided to turn it into Lost and Found. They could pick it up the next day. Then dispatch called, told me about the long litany of complaints this couple had made about my unprofessionalism and rudeness. Everything dispatch said was fictitious and made up. At the end, dispatch said, "They accused you of stealing their phone and insist you drive it back or they're going to call the police." I pretended to look around for it and said, "There were a couple of belligerent drunks. They probably left it in the bar. It's not here." Dispatch believed me because they were belligerent to him, and no one had ever complained about me. R.I.P. little phone. It got tossed when I cleaned up at the car wash. 3. About 10 years ago, I had this sales development internship at a technology company. For those who don't know, sales development is the worst job in sales because you cold call and cold email people at work who aren't expecting your call, and you do this all day, every day. But it has its moments, and it's a path to a better job. It was actually the second summer after I had a good experience the first time. In the time in between, while I was at school, there was a management shakeup with a new CEO. The new CEO definitely preferred hiring friends rather than professionals. She ended up destroying the company, but that's a whole nother story. So on to my malicious compliance. This second summer, all the familiar salespeople faces were there, but I had a new boss. I could immediately tell she was a turd. One of those people who interrupts you on any question and just tells you to figure it out, I'm very busy. Great choice for a boss of 3 interns who are here to learn. Now, we're told on the second day in a meeting with the whole sales team that this year is going to be a little different for the interns, more structured. And I learned that we're not going to be calling or emailing anyone, no. We're going to be white spacing. Remember when I said cold calling is the worst job in sales? I lied. White spacing is corporate BS for data entry. In our case, going into every account and customer in our system on record and updating tiny details like their industry, address, and phone numbers for every contact. The boss planned for us to white space every day, 8 hours, for the entire internship. I was crushed. Not only would I learn nothing, but it would be mind-numbing. The other 2 interns were brand new and didn't know what was happening. A few salespeople tried to speak up. Hey, One Spell Wizard was here last year and he did a great job calling for us. We actually closed a few deals thanks to him. Shouldn't we have them do it again? Immediately shut down, said she didn't trust interns to do high-risk work like that. Mind you, sales development is an entry-level job. So we start white spacing. Among many things, there was this field called Current Solution, where we were supposed to record the incumbent software at the account. To fill it in, we had 3 options of competitors, other, and leaving it blank. Now, despite my deep dissatisfaction in this job, I wanted to do a good job, so I could leave this internship with a recommendation and get a real job in a year after I graduated. However, as you might imagine, it's pretty impossible to know if an account is using a competitor if you don't talk to anyone there. We had one service we paid for that was supposed to have useful info about the accounts, but current software was usually unknown. But I did my merry best going through several thousand accounts and ended up finding info to fill it in for every 1 in 10 accounts. And the rest had to be blank. And I fire off an email saying, all done, what can I work on next? Then I get called to the manager's desk. One Spell Wizard, explain to me what's going on here. I see the report of the accounts and data points I entered. Well, I completed all the white spacing you asked me to do. Except you didn't. You did almost nothing. Look at all those blanks. I tried to explain, so for the fields where data was unknown, I didn't want to put anything wrong in, so I left it blank after reviewing our info tool and... Well, then you need to dig harder and find the information. I realize this is a futile effort, and say, okay, I will try harder. To clarify, you want these fields filled in no matter what, even if nothing is in our info tool. Yes, are you listening? I want to see some real effort this time. Now go, I'm very busy. Well, I trotted off and went into those thousands of accounts and did exactly as I was told. I filled in current solution, and other fields no matter what. And since the info was impossible to find, I just put other for all of them. Worse than blank, it was useless data. And I waited a few days, taking 2 or 3 times longer than I originally did to show effort. Because F this. In my head I was actually itching for a second fight. The report obviously said other for everything. So I figure this will start her off and I can rub her nose on how pointless this is. But that doesn't happen. Nope, she calls me back and praises me. I shit you not. She goes sing-songy for a moment. Oh, One Spell Wizard, this is amazing. Exactly what I asked for. Absolutely incredible completeness of information. Thank you for showing real effort after my coaching. I'm watching her scroll past all the other fields, and in my head, I'm just overjoyed at how stupidly good this turned out. My boss then parades me over to the other interns, whose reports are woefully lacking, and pats me on the shoulder and says, "Now I want all of you to follow One Spell Wizard's example and learn from him how to get your reports up to par." And she walks off. I sit down and tell the others, okay, here's the trick I found to make the reports the way boss likes. You ready? Fill in other for every field because she doesn't care about the data, just that it's filled in. One of the other interns goes, But that would be lying. Do you want to get chewed out again? Well, no. Can we find the data anywhere? No, it's impossible. Cool. That's exactly my thought process too, so we just fill in crap and she'll praise us for making gold. And they filled in trash too. And our boss was glowing all over our reports. Now, this was only week 2 of the 10 of the internship. I started to get worried that I might have set us up for a bad time because more white spacing requests started coming. But on Friday, our boss gathers the whole team and shares that she's leaving the company and there's no replacement. In retrospect, I wonder and hope that maybe she got fired. All the salespeople hated her too. The moment she left, I went to a couple of the salespeople and asked, "Hey, since Idiot Boss is gone, can you share some accounts for me to call and do some interesting work for once?" And then the 3 of us interns actually had a fun summer and didn't whitespace a goddamn thing again. The end. 4. I worked at a small market TV station. It's common to have fewer people doing the same job as you'd find in bigger markets, since smaller stations just can't support the larger staffs. For example, we often handled newscasts with just 2 people in the control room, with a director calling camera shots, operating the video switcher, and rolling tapes. This was about 25 years ago. We still used videotape, while the engineer ran audio, loaded tapes, and kept the program log. It could get a little hairy. It was common for the director to occasionally miss calling a command. One day, for the 6 p.m. news, the meteorologist teased the forecast going into the commercial break by saying something like, "Will it snow tomorrow? I'll let you know when we come back." The director rolled the commercial reel, which had a 3-second pre-roll, so the meteorologist had to stand there and wait for the director to fade to black. The director had multiple things happening at the same time and never called for the mic to be clipped, so I, the engineer, brought up the level of the bumper music, also not called, and clipped the mic. Just then, for some odd reason, the meteorologist decided to add, "Stay tuned." But because his mic was already off, he was just mouthing the words on camera. After the news was gone, the meteorologist was a bit irritated. The director reamed me out, pointing out that he had not called for the mic to be clipped. I noted how such calls were often missed, and he just as likely would have called for the mic to be clipped if he had been able to pay close enough attention. I wasn't faulting him, just noting that it happened to have been me that got fooled by the double T's. He wouldn't have it. "In the future, I want you to follow my calls to the letter. Don't clip a mic unless I call for you to clip a mic." I pointed out that this was going to result in a lot more errors, but he was insistent. "It's my responsibility. If I call it wrong, I'll take the blame." Okay, you got it, Mr. Director, sir. Less than 4 hours later, 10 p.m. news, the director fails to call for mics to be clipped going into the break. Since it was not up to him to call what level the mics were at, I brought them down to just above 0, still technically on, but for all intents and purposes inaudible. I waited. The speakers in the audio will automatically toggle off if a mic channel is open to prevent feedback. So, after about 10 seconds into the break, the camera crew softly called over their headsets that the mics were still on. The director, busy setting up for the next segment, said, "What? Mr. Engineer, why didn't you clip the mics?" I calmly replied, "You haven't called for the mics to be clipped." "Oh, okay," came the distracted response. The mics remained on. Another 10 seconds, the crew whispered, "The mics are still on." "Why haven't you clipped the mics?" "You haven't called for the mics to be clipped." "Clip the goddamn mics!" I clipped the mics. After the block, he was seething. "Just what kind of game do you think you're playing?" I just responded, "Just doing exactly what you insisted I do less than 4 hours ago. You swore to me that you'd take the blame for a missed call. The aircheck tape that records the headset audio on one channel will bear me out that you failed to call for the mics to be clipped not once, but twice. Now, do you still want a robot, or someone who'll think for themselves and occasionally make a mistake?" Instead of taking responsibility as he promised, he tried to throw me under the bus. I got called into the news VP's office that day. I explained exactly what happened. The VP shook his head. Jesus, what you gonna do with kids these days? We agreed that I was to go back to clipping the mic if a mic needed to be clipped, and if the director had a problem with that, to see him. Fortunately, the director quit shortly thereafter. 5. So I had a garden maintenance business and had a lady living in a very nice area call me and ask me to do some regular visits. I was actually in the process of selling the business, but made 6 more visits. She was pretty bad at paying, but had a previous invoice, so I let her balance grow to about $300 before sending numerous reminders. When she found out I was selling the business, she obviously tried to not pay me. I was texting and emailing her every few days, and she would ignore 90% of the messages and eventually asked me to stop harassing her, stating she had COVID and would settle it the following week. I'd basically written this off in my head, not caring about the money, but was angry because she's a high-profile lawyer, lives in a rich suburb, and had the means to pay me. I also mentioned the situation to my mum, who said that I shouldn't threaten a lawyer and should just walk away. Once the business had sold, I found her lawyer profile where she worked. This is a big company in the city, and I noticed they had Google reviews open but had 0 reviews. I left a 1-star review very openly stating this was not the company, but her, and what had happened. By this point I have moved to South America for 6 months of backpacking, and I didn't really care what would happen. I got a call from Jordan, the new owner of the business, the next day, saying he'd received a call and was having legal action threatened against him, and asking me to remove it. I told him the situation and asked for 24 hours more to resolve it, and if it got too heated, I would take it down. He previously worked for me, and I consider him a friend, so thankfully he was all good with that. I quickly spoke to my brother, who has a law degree, just to make sure she was just bluffing. At the end of the day, it's not illegal to make a Google review. I then received an email from her demanding I remove it and she would pay me. I very strongly worded a response saying it will not be removed until the money is clear in my account. I fell asleep then, and when I woke up I had 3 more emails initially threatening me, then eventually saying that she had paid the money. Once I checked the money was in my account, I removed the post. She had made it very clear that she was under extreme pressure from her firm. I'd also sent the email to their reception, and I'm sure the whole office was aware of this incident, and her reputation had been affected. Moral of this story: if you have a public profile, don't treat people badly in the days of the internet. I also feel especially content that I faced up with a lawyer who probably thought she could scare me and not pay, and gave a taste of their own medicine. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 196. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And a big thank you to you all for listening, and if any of you would like to hit the like button, that would be a good way of showing appreciation. There's also links and other things in the description you can click on if you want to have a look around. There is a Hellfreezer merch store, which, I don't know, maybe you've got a loved one, Christmas is coming up, give the gift of Hellfreezer. Alrighty, let's see. Hellfreezer's question of the day. I think the next birthday shout-out's December. Although if you have one, send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. And you can find that in the description. Let's see. Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: things that sound weird to your ears, even though it's been years, so it's pretty much the norm now. Like, the names of things will change from time to time. I mention this because I saw an article, we'll call it an article, it was on Twitter, about King Charles recently attending some sort of royal event. And it's still weird in my ears to hear King Charles, you know. At least when we're talking about present day. Because in my mind, he's still a prince, which of course is not the fact. He's the king, yada, yada, yada. But that got me to thinking. Are there things that are always just going to sound weird to my ears to hear? Like when people call a marathon Snickers, the chocolate bar in the UK for years when I was growing up, it was marathon. And I was young at the time when they changed it, so it's been a long time. But in my mind, they're always still called marathon. In Starburst, they were called Opal Fruits at one point. In fact, I remember them, over the past couple of years, we very briefly had them given the retro name for some sort of nostalgic thing, and it made me happy. Just that very, very brief period. I was delighted. But things change. They're probably to improve sales and maybe to have like a more universal name for a product. Various reasons, but please do let me know some of the things that have changed in your lifetime that your brain just refuses to accept. For whatever reason. Please leave your answers in a comment below. I look forward to having a look at them. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. I'm going to rest my voice. I've done a lot of recording the past few days. It was a busy week as well. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.